Following the ominous disappearance of Nina Reiser, investigators have 3 good suspects.
Her ex-husband, her estranged husband, Hans Reiser, her current boyfriend, Anthony Zagrafos, and her former boyfriend and Hans Reiser's former best friend, Sean Sturgeon.
Everybody was a person of interest from our perspective.
According to some of Nina's closest friends, Zagrafos could be jealous and controlling.
He claims to have been out of town during the period which Nina disappeared. That is something that obviously we wanted to figure out where he was at and confirm that he was there.
That weekend, Anthony went on a camping trip with his ex-wife and their children. Anthony's alibi was airtight.
We continued to conduct an investigation on him, obtaining his cell phone records and financial documents, and everything that we checked out seemed to coincide with Anthony being clear of any wrongdoing.
Detectives turn their attention to Nina's jilted lover, Sean. According to friends, he was still supporting her financially.
At first glance, one would believe that Nina may be into quite a large debt with Sean Sturgeon, which would be a very good motive to harm somebody or cause them to go missing.
And as investigators discover, Hans's best friend is hardly the boy next door.
He was the maid of honor at the wedding. I don't know why they did that, but he dressed in drag, and that was just a whole nother kind of anomaly or weird element.
I had a pretty wild lifestyle. I was in the leather community. I was actually getting out of the leather community, but I'd been in it. I'd had a lot of experiences, in the sex industry. I could do just wild things.
But so far, investigators can find no evidence to connect him with any wrongdoing, and cops can't arrest him for just being strange.
Sean Sturgeon had an alibi. It wasn't as tight, but it was a reasonable alibi. He was working in a soup kitchen that night.
If there's anybody police should be looking at, Sean tells detectives, it's Hans Reiser. As they soon discover, the Reiser's ongoing custody battle is as nasty as they come.
I have had a number of cases that are contentious and unpleasant, and this was by far the worst.
He was continually trying to get custody of the children, and every time he and Nina would go to court, Nina would just wipe the floor with him.
Nina accused Hans of cruelty and neglect. He called her an unfit mother, an adulteress, and a thief.
Hans claimed that Nina had embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars from Namesys during the time that she was the CFO of the company.
This is one strange trio of suspects. A jealous boyfriend who vacations with his ex-wife, an ex-boyfriend who's into the leather scene, and a husband with a grudge as big as his ego.
They say to Hans, "You were the last person to see Nina Reiser. Do you know what happened to her? Do you know where we can find her?"
And Hans says, "Talk to my lawyer." That's it.
That's when they start thinking, oh, did Hans Reiser have something to do with the disappearance of Nina Reiser?
Investigators obtain a search warrant for Hans's home and vehicle. At first, the residence seems in perfect order, but then one of the detectives notices something suspicious.
There was a post that kind of separates the living room by the hall, and there was a smear of blood that was found about 4 feet off the ground.
Crime scene technicians scour every inch of the home, but don't find any more evidence. It's what's missing that raises eyebrows.
He had removed the hard drives from his computers. He just opened up the computer and removed the hard drives, and they were nowhere to be found.
Also notably absent is Hans's car.
It was determined early on in the investigation that Hans was driving a Honda CRX and that it actually belonged to his mother, Beverly. She told me that Hans had told her the vehicle had battery problems and she had no idea where the vehicle was.
Investigators question Hans's neighbors. Nobody's seen the car since shortly after Nina's disappearance. But the canvas turns up a compelling new clue.
2 nights after Nina's disappearance, a neighbor across the street from Hans's house saw Hans out in the driveway with a hose for about a half an hour hosing off something in the driveway.
And he says, you know, I thought that was really weird, even for Hans, because he doesn't do any yard. We've never seen him do anything ever out there in the house.
When DNA tests show the blood from Hans's house is Nina's, investigators are convinced they're on the right track. But without a body, they barely have a case.
It became clear that Hans wasn't cooperating in the investigation in her disappearance. And it was becoming more and more evident that Hans had something to do with Nina's disappearance. The judge authorized a wiretap warrant.
About 3 weeks after Nina's disappearance, investigators pick up on an ominous conversation between Hans and his mother.
Hello?
Hi, Mom.
Yeah?
He essentially starts the call by saying, hey, Mom, let me tell you about the divorce and all the horrible, ugly things Nina did to me.
You know, she didn't just abuse me. She looked for every possible way she could screw me, and did it.
You know, but Hans, as awful as these things are, it's still sad, whatever it is that's happened to Nina.
Well, yeah.
I mean, no matter all these things that she didn't deserve whatever it is that's happened to her. Don't you think?
I think my children shouldn't be endangered by her.
But still, Nina didn't deserve whatever it is that's happened to her.
He was really confessing to the crime.
Yeah, and neither did I, and neither did Rory.
It becomes clear that he's trying to convince his mom why he killed Nina.
All right, take it easy, Hans.
Bye-bye, I love you. I love you a lot.
What follows is a game of cat and mouse through the streets of Oakland.
After the police began to focus on Hans, they were following him frequently while he was driving around, and he engaged in what the police call counter-surveillance. Well, by that I mean he would drive down the freeway at 30 miles an hour, even though the speed limit's 65. He would get off on an exit, get back on an exit, in an effort to figure out whether or not someone was following him.